thank you so much for joining, for everybody who comes every week and for people who are coming for the first time. So I'm Sarah, and you'll see Helen on your screen as well. The purpose of these sessions is really half an hour on a Thursday morning. I think partly to start our Thursdays in a positive way. I think we always find it's a really optimistic way to get towards the end of the week. But what we want to do is take the podcast topic of the week and really think about, given we've got an opportunity to talk about it visually, to share some tools, to learn from each other, the community that is here. And you'll see it's a brilliantly supportive community that has lots of ideas to add above and beyond what we'll talk about. It is an opportunity, I guess, to deepen our learning on the topic of the week. So that's kind of what we're here to do.
Super. Right. I just remembered that I told the community we were going to do something about 2 weeks ago that I need to do today, which is a breakout room, Sarah. So just to let you know, because we haven't planned this, I'm going to do a breakout room for about 5 minutes at about 20-ish past, everybody. If you can't join that breakout room, don't worry, but you did all ask for it about 2 weeks ago, and then we couldn't do it because we had the LinkedIn session, which I hope lots of you came to. So I will try and squeeze that in when we get to what we're talking about today. That means I need to quickly go through this stuff. Here's the big reveal. It's already been revealed. We, as of today, have been announced that we are LinkedIn change makers, which is super exciting. What does that mean? It means we are part of a community of 8 people who are going to be supported by LinkedIn over the next 9 months or so to really champion our work. The other 8, the sort of people that we're with, you can see them all here. They are doing some amazing things around disability, equality, mental health, work resilience. There's so many great things. We're going to talk about this more, but it's an exciting day. And there's even a TV ad and some awkward posing on a staircase, and Helen getting really upset about pictures that she doesn't like. Can't wait for the TV ad. But yeah, it's really, really exciting that LinkedIn is supporting the work. So you'll probably hear more about that. And today is like the big reveal. I think the TV ad is on the, I want to say 6th of September. So maybe we'll watch that before we share it. This week's Pod Plus is all about kickstarting your career. Interesting topic really over the summer, because you kind of go, we shouldn't be that when we're relaxing. But we think that actually there are lots of small things. This is about small things that you can do to invest in your career. And actually, I was really struck by when Dory Clark came on the podcast and she talked about, I don't know if people who were in that Pod Plus session with me, where she talked about that liminal moment, this moment of in between, where it's the people who take small actions that get advantage. And I think whether this is advantage for your career or just to feel like you're creating some momentum for yourself, that's what this is all about. It's about small actions you can take to invest in yourself. So there is the podcast. You've got pod notes, which is your swipeable summary. You've got your pod sheets. So after today, if you want to dive a bit deeper, there's all of those things, all on amazingif.com. If you haven't already, I would suggest signing up for Pod Mail, which I'll put the link in the chat to in a second. This is a weekly email that you get on a Tuesday morning, and it basically has the links to everything. So it just makes it easier to find it. If you ever find yourself searching for these resources, that might be a good thing. So in a second, I'll put the sign up link in the chat for you so you can see it. And one more thing, if you do want to dive even deeper on this topic, we have saved our Squiggly Career Summer School. So you've got 4 different videos. They're each about 25 minutes on value, strengths, belief, and progression. Some of the things that we'll talk about now. And again, I'm going to put that link in the chat for you while Sarah is talking. So Sarah, in the interest of time, I'm going to stop now, hand over to you to do the first things that we're going to talk about, and then I'll be back.
Cool. Thank you. I'll get this up here. Okay, so what we thought we would do today is for each of those 5 areas, if you have listened to the podcast, we shared ideas for action. We suggested questions that you can ask yourself in terms of reflection and awareness questions. So what we thought we would do is, rather than repeat that, give you something new, give you something still in those 5 areas, but another exercise, another idea for action, and a coach yourself question as well. So I'm going to do strengths, values, and confidence, and then hand over to Helen. So here we go on strengths. Idea for action first. So often I think when we think about strengths, we put a lot of energy and effort and focus into knowing our strengths. So building our awareness of what are our strengths, how can we use them more? And in the podcast, we talked about getting at your best feedback. The thing that I'm also really interested in is how can we stretch our strengths? So this is less about knowing your strengths and more about growing your strengths. And one idea for action for you: how could you stretch one of your strengths between now and the end of this year? So what would that look like? So if you were going to set yourself a stretch kind of goal to make one of your strengths even stronger between now and the end of the year, like what would that look like? So for example, for each of these, I was thinking about this last night, so I've done it to practice what I preach. And I was like, I'm going to say this out loud because I know this community will really hold me to this. And I really had a thought about, do I say it? Do I not? But I'm going to. So one of the things that I'm working on is improving my sketch notes. So visualizing ideas for things like Pod Plus and for the workshops that we do. And I thought one of the things that I could do to stretch one of my strengths in terms of visual thinking, visual design, is once a month, take one of our podcast episodes and create a sketch note. So that would mean that between now and the end of the year, I would do 4 sketch notes for 4 different podcast episodes, which I would share with, let's say, the Pod Plus community. Maybe not any further than that until we work out whether they're useful and or any good. But that feels like a really specific way of stretching one of my strengths, because I've got an outcome. I've got something where I will know I'll either do that or I won't, which I think can be quite helpful, because otherwise growing your strengths can feel just sort of like something you maybe just expect to happen. And this makes it really specific. So think about what could one of your strengths that you would like to make stronger. Think about what is that strength first of all. So I'd be like, mine is visual thinking. And then think about what would a stretch goal, a specific stretch goal, look like between now and the end of the year. So there's an idea for action for you on growing your strengths rather than knowing. And here's a coach yourself question: how can you stretch one of your strengths to make it stronger? So that's the first idea. Now let's think a little bit about values. And for values, I was thinking it might be useful to think a bit about our values outside of our day job. So often we focus on, again, once you know your values, can you live those values more in the work that you're doing at the moment? But I think our jobs are only one of the ways. So the job that you're doing today is only one of the ways that you can live your values more. And so I think there are lots of other opportunities you can think about. So you can think about the team that you're in. You can think about the organization that you're in. You can think about, that's a rubbish one, wait. You can think about the industry that you're part of. And then even wider than that, you can start to think about things that you could volunteer for, or that you're really passionate about, or hobbies. And as a reminder, your values are what motivate and drive you in all aspects of your life. So of course, look at your day job and think about how could you live your values more in your day job, but also look outside of that day job. Perhaps have a go as an idea for action at looking kind of outside in rather than kind of inside out. So actually maybe starting here, starting with the rest of your life outside of work, and what are the things that you're really interested in and really passionate about, and are those things giving you the opportunity to live your values as much as you would like? Because we live our values in lots and lots of different ways. They show up in lots of different parts of our life, and sometimes it can be easier, and we perhaps might even be more in control of some of those things on the outside than we might be on some of the specifics of the day to day. So just a different way of thinking about your values and starting from a different place. And so perhaps a coach yourself question to ask here is, how can you live your values more outside of your day job? That could be something you want to do within your team. It could be a cause that you're passionate about within your organization. And I think so often we don't do those things because we feel like we're busy, we've got a lot on, our tasks and our to-do lists feel really long. But in my experience, every time I have said yes to something outside of my day job that's very aligned with my values, it's improved kind of my quality of life, my ability to live a week where I think, was my time this week well spent? The more you live your values, the more likely you are to say yes to that question. So perhaps just have a think about that. To bring this to life, one example for me, one of my values is learning. And one of the things that I've really missed through COVID is actually learning with other people about things that are very unrelated to what I do day to day at work. So I've got really fond memories of doing a philosophy course at the School of Life. Nothing to do with what we do, just something I've always been interested in. So one of the things that I really want to think about for my learning value, which is very much here, kind of in my spare time, how I choose to spend my time outside of my job, is there just one or two things I could do between now and Christmas where I would be learning purely for me and in a way that really suits me and that I know I like to learn, and for lots of very practical reasons during the pandemic has been less accessible and easy to make happen. So maybe that's an event, maybe that's a very short program or a short course, but just having a few of those things I think between now and Christmas would help me to think, oh, I know I'm going to have those kind of injections of inspiration that come from other places, and I know I don't have that at the moment between now and Christmas. So it made me think a bit about that. Now I want to think a little bit about confidence, and I want to talk about this idea of something called self-supporting statements. And I'm just going to draw quite a lot of these, which will make sense in a second. So let's just say that again. So self-supporting statements. So self-supporting statements help to boost our belief and to build our confidence. They remind us that we can do the things that we want to do. They stop our inner critic being in charge, and they put our inner coach in charge. The bit of you that sees your potential, that believes you can do things, that reminds you you've been resilient before so that you can do it again. Now, sometimes these sort of self-supporting statements might get described as things like positive affirmations. And being very honest, I'm always really skeptical about those kind of things. I'm like, oh, positive affirmations, that sort of thing. Not really for me. And then I read the research, which really does demonstrate it doesn't matter what you call these things. So self-supporting statements works better for me. That feels like words that work for me. But when you create very short sentences and statements that you have developed for yourself in your own words, and that you repeat and come back to really frequently, it really helps to boost your belief. And when you look at the research behind this, it's shown that you're basically reminding yourself of all of the good stuff, that you can do something, and something that you know is going to help you to boost your belief. So just make sure, if you're going to have a go at doing this, the factors that help this to be successful are, it's got to feel personal. So the words have got to work for you. The more you repeat it, it's got to be kind of repeatable. So that might be just by, you start every day by writing at the top of your notebook. That might be you stick a Post-it on the wall that you can see every day with those words on, but something that reminds you of it frequently. And as I said, it's got to be kind of in your own words, because otherwise it feels like you're sort of borrowing these self-supporting statements from other people. So I was trying to think, right, what would help to boost my belief between maybe now and the end of the year? How would I articulate a self-supporting statement? And this is just one that I got to, so it's very personal for me, probably won't feel very relevant for anyone else. But I got to, active rest equals achieving more. So for me, one of my observations about myself at the moment is I'm not making very much time for active rest. And active rest is where you're putting your brain to use and in a way where it's fully absorbed and present, but you're not working. So it's not sort of lounging and watching Netflix, which I'm good at. I do that. That happens in my days. It's something different. It's exercise for me. It might be cooking. It could be reading. It might be playing computer games. It can be whatever it is, as long as you are fully 100% present and absorbed in it. And I find I don't do this very much in my week at all. But I know that when I have active rest in my weeks, it boosts my belief. And then that does mean that I can achieve more. And so I don't make time and space, and I deprioritize active rest at the moment. So I've got to find a way of doing this that's different to how my weeks work at the moment. So that would be a self-supporting statement for me. Active rest equals achieving more. And one of my values is achievement. So it's quite helpful that I've managed to put one of my values in my self-supporting statement. So I hope that makes sense. Coach yourself question on this: who can you have a conversation with to boost your belief? So just remembering that building our belief and increasing our confidence is not a solo endeavor. You don't do this by yourself. So particularly if you're feeling a bit stuck at the moment, or you don't feel, maybe not feeling very confident, but you're not sure why, just think about who could you connect with just to have a really informal conversation with, but you know that person leaves you feeling better than when you started. They always boost your belief. They give you that energy. That was the last one from me, Helen. You're on mute.
I'm on mute and trying to share my screen at the same time. I'm coming. Okay, so we've got 2 more to do. We've got networking and future. The networking bit I'm changing on the fly because I remembered what I'd committed to 2 weeks ago. So when we were together 2 weeks ago, we talked about the Dory Clark episode, which is about how you can reshape your role. And one of the things she talked about was the importance of relationships in reshaping your role. And she mentioned 3 things that in how we look at our relationships. Some relationships are a bit reactive. So I need something, you've got it. Some relationships are reciprocal. So we both want something from each other and we can connect and they're quite meaningful. And some relationships are random. Like you kind of don't know what you're going to get from these people, and you have to put yourself in those situations to get that kind of random benefit. Gets towards the stuff we talked about before around the benefit of weak ties, people that you don't know so well that can create opportunities that you might not know about. So that was what we talked about. And then I said, oh, would it be interesting if we did a bit of breakouts at some point? And you all said yes. And I said, oh, we'll do it. And I think it might have been Monica who said, Helen, we can't do it next week because we've got the LinkedIn session. And I was like, yes, you know our schedule better than us. So I'm going to fulfill that promise today. My idea for action for you generally on networking is to find yourself a learning community. I think one of the things that has enabled Sarah and I to be friends for so long and to kind of grow our business together is that, as well as having achievement as a shared value, we both like learning the same things. And so having people who like learning the same things as you, things that stimulate your brain in a similar way, it keeps you connected, it keeps you sharing. It's a really authentic way of building relationships when you find yourself a peer who likes learning the same things you, or even a community. So this is what we're going to do. Idea on the fly. We're going to do a breakout for 5 minutes, okay? And you're going to go into group 3, hence 3 brains. All we would love you to do, and if you can't go into the breakout room for whatever reason, don't worry, just kind of hang around in the main room, but we'll put you into a room. All we want you to do is share one thing that you would like to learn more about this year. Can be anything. You may have 2 brains that want to learn the same thing. You might have 2 brains that want to learn different things, but you might know someone who, or you might know something who could help. So hopefully it's a pretty obvious thing. This is at your request. So I'm going to stop sharing. We're going to go into the breakout room. If you can just accept at the bottom of your screen the room that you go into, but it's one thing you want to learn more about this year. Can be anything. Let's just see whether we get any brain matching, any peer learning matches. See you all back here in 5 minutes, and then we'll talk coach yourself question. Welcome back. We'll just get everybody back in. Is everyone back? Here we are. We're all coming back. I know that was super speedy. I also made Sarah super anxious fitting in a breakout room into what is already quite a condensed session. And I have 3 minutes left to talk about more things. Really quick bit of feedback from you, because that was sort of thrust upon you, even though you kind of asked me to do it. Can you let us know whether you want more of those sort of breakout moments in Pod Plus or not? The way we're going to do this is with annotation, everybody. So you know how to annotate. Green boxes, yes. Stick a star there. Red boxes, no, that was horrendous, Helen. Never make me do that ever again. I can see some people put it in chat, but if you can give us a visual, anyone who doesn't know how to use annotation, it's top of your screen, view options, then you annotate, stamp and star or heart. Green is, yes, more of those moments, please. Maybe a bit longer. Red is never do that again. It was horrendous and I felt awful. Interesting. Okay, so it was potentially quite quick, but nice. Oh, I'm glad. And maybe you found some things that you can learn from with each other too, which is exciting. Right, I'm going to clear your lovely hearts and thank you for that feedback. Super helpful. 2 minutes to go. Coach yourself question on networking. I think sometimes we get very worky focused on networking. Who do I need to know to help me do my job? And so 2 questions that might take you to a different place about some people you could go and follow. You don't have to know everybody directly. You can sometimes follow and learn from people indirectly, like on Instagram or LinkedIn or whatever. Think, who do you admire? Big question. Who do you admire? And who could you inspire? So let's not always think about the role that other people play. What's the role that you could play for other people? And again, that could be indirectly because you're sharing things on a platform, like I guess we do on lots of hours, or it could be directly because you're having that conversation. But maybe just a question to get you thinking differently. On future, we've talked about this before, so hopefully this will be something that's familiar to you, but it's the idea of curious career conversations. It doesn't have to involve coffee or tea, but it's always nicer when it does. I would think about, if I was going to have 1 curious career conversation a month, that's 12 a year. You'd really start to explore different things. This is not about jobs that you want to do. This is about careers that you're curious about, finding more about what people do and how they got there and what they learn and who they learn with. It's just lots of curiosity. I am doing one tomorrow with somebody in person who is she owns a film company, nothing to do with what I do, but I think could be really interesting. Places that I think are really useful to go and find this stuff, I've mentioned this before, but Lunch Club, that's how I'm getting mine tomorrow. I think you might have to have a link for Lunch Club. And if you do and you need it, email me and I will give it, because I've got like a Helen Tupper code that gets you onto Lunch Club. So if you do need that, let me know. But it's a really good way of making random connections. Also, you can reconnect with people maybe you used to work with. You can sometimes get connected. Maybe somebody knows somebody who could introduce you, but I think maybe put yourself out there for some curious coffee conversations. Good for, I think it's kind of good for conversational skills as well, but you end up just learning a lot about what people do and how they got there. One final coach yourself question for you, which is not ours. It's from a brilliant lady called Amanda Mackenzie. It is one that's in our book, but it's one that makes you think. You're 90 on a park bench looking back. What matters? Start with the end in mind, and then you can maybe start to align what you're doing today with that. So hopefully that's a useful question for you. We are at the end of time. We're 1 minute over, and I think we've packed about as much as we've ever packed into a Pod Plus. So thank you so much, everybody, for being here. I hope it was useful. Next week, we're doing negotiation, I think, Sarah.
Oh, yeah, we are. Yeah. With Chris, well, so the interview is with Chris Voss, who is an FBI hostage negotiator. I got very sweaty in that interview because he just, I think, made me very nervous. But then when we got into it, and I've actually listened to that edit, it's a really good conversation. There is some very practical things about negotiating pay rises, flexible working, priorities and projects. So we'll really focus on negotiation in a work context.
Brilliant. Okay, everybody, thank you so much for your time today. We will see you all very soon. Take care. Bye.